turn-based battles, the heart of the classic RPG. Originally conceived as a way to translate the multi-character aspects of tabletop RPGs to a digital setting, turn-based systems offer a unique blend of simplicity and complexity, easy enough to code into a 90s-era Flash game and deep enough to appear in high-profile releases. The genre has been iterated upon for decades, receiving tweaks and twists here and there, blending with other genres all the way up until its so-called death. Regardless of the form it takes, I can say with certainty that it's a genre that I love, and if you're a fan of old-school JRPGs, then I'm sure you do too. That's why I'm so happy to talk about the combat system we've cooked up. I'm going to get into the details of how we're attempting to put our own spin on the tried and true formula. Legacy Lost, A Revolution of Scales follows in the tradition of the narrative-focused JRPG. If you want a general overview of what the game is, you can check out our first video, but this video is going to be a deep dive into the combat system. So let's get started. One thing you'll hear a lot if you follow us is that we've taken a lot of inspiration from the gameplay elements of Valkyrie Profile. Because both games are side-scrollers, Legacy Lost also uses the framework of enemies being visible on the overworld. Touching an enemy will initiate combat, which transfers the party to a battle screen where the battle plays out. This isn't a Chrono Trigger situation where battles play out on the overworld. Our current intention is to make it so enemies do not respawn within dungeons. The design of our dungeons often require backtracking, and we feel that too many battles might create unnecessary monotony. Our combat system is a bit more intensive than classic turn-based battles, so they take a bit longer. Purposefully, you can't just mash a button to get through trash mobs, so we don't want the player to be overwhelmed. Another philosophy we have is that grinding should be avoided. We hope to have a solid experience curve where killing the enemies that are present will ensure that the player is at an appropriate level for the boss, although there are challenges present for those who want to go above and beyond. For all of these reasons, we're aiming to keep battles a fun and engaging experience rather than a chore that needs to be completed for experience and loot. So that's how battles are started. Let's hop into one. Our battles allow for 3v3 fights, so let's meet the small cast of characters that's going to demonstrate combat for us today. There's Pollux, our leading man and all-around bruiser, Arya, our leading lady and magic caster, and Locke, the resident drunk lancer. Let's take a look at what happens when the party makes contact with an enemy. The first thing you might notice is that the field begins empty, with no players and enemies. Both parties will need to place themselves somewhere on this field, which is a collection of 9 positions oriented horizontally. Which party acts first is calculated based on cumulative party stats, but more on stats later. The battlefield follows a simple rule. Actions will resolve from left to right. Characters on the left will act first, and then the turn will be performed by the next character on their right. Securing the left side of the field could be imperative if you need someone to act immediately. For example, if a character can't take another hit and needs a heal. However, there are a lot of reasons not just to fight over the left side of the field. Let's talk about these colored spaces on the field. Each battlefield has environmental qualities that change from battle to battle. These qualities do a variety of things, but they can be generally separated into 4 categories. Red designates that placing a character on this spot will cause direct damage. Green designates that a character will be healed on that spot. Purple shows that a character will receive a debuff, and blue means that the character will get a buff. Icons at the bottom of the field display the damage type that will be caused along with other helpful info. In particular, the hand icon indicates that the effect will be activated upon touching it, whereas the clock shows that the effect won't activate until the end of the positioning round. But why, I hear you asking, would you place a character on a negative space? Well, now might be a good time to talk about classes. There are a total of 9 classes in the game, each with a differing skill banks that focus on different damage types. What you need to know now is that each class interacts with the field differently. Each character has a unique way that they can move other characters on the field. Let's start by taking a look at Pollux. Every character in the game will have access to 3 pre-designated classes, but Pollux begins as a champion. Champion is a kind of all-around physical class befitting a main character. On the field, champions can push enemies 1 space away. Pretty helpful if you want to push an enemy into an environmental hazard or off a buff tile. But wait, there's more. Champions can also push enemies into other characters, which causes direct damage. Enemies can also be pushed into the edges of the battlefield to cause this direct damage, which is just one more reason you might not want to grab that first spot. But what if you can't hang with big brain tactical plays and just want to hit something? That's where Locke has you covered. Locke is a berserker, and berserkers are able to charge across the battlefield and cause damage to anyone they collide with. Sorry, Pollux. The longer a berserker charges, the more damage they'll cause. Because of this, it's generally not helpful to put a berserker on the field first with nobody to charge at, unless you want to clear all the firebombs off the field. But if there's only one enemy on the field and you have room to run, then berserker is sure to be your best opener. But shouldn't there be a medic on the field? That's where Arya comes in. Arya is an Ascendant. Ascendants can move an allied character one space closer from range. It doesn't matter if there's an enemy between the Ascendant and the ally they're trying to pull. If there's an unobstructed space, the Ascendant can pull the ally towards it. This ability is useful when trying to pull an ally off of a negative space onto a positive one, or out of the range of a powerful enemy. Opposite to the champion, if the Ascendant pulls an ally that collides with the Ascendant, then the ally is healed. Easier to just think of it as a sort of heal hug. Now, there are 9 classes each with unique movement properties, and some of them have synergies and anti-synergies with one another. Looking at just the 3 classes I've described here, Ascendant and Berserker have an interesting relationship. Remember when I said that Berserkers will damage whoever they collide with? Well, what if an Ascendant pulls a Berserker into an enemy? Well, the Berserker will attack that enemy. What if the Ascendant wants to heal the Berserker by pulling the Berserker into themselves? Well, the heal will work, but the Berserker will still attack the Ascendant. No matter how good at healing you are, it seems like you're always getting attacks from the party anyway. Another class, Guardian, will attack any enemy that is pushed into them. This means that a champion could push an enemy into a Guardian, triggering 2 attacks. Of course, enemies have access to all of these classes as well, so it's important to know what abilities they have. They'll try to exploit certain synergies, for instance, trying to push your Berserker into your own party, but you can always do the same to them. In all, our battle system seeks to provide a tactical depth not generally seen in traditional JRPGs, but scales down the complexity of a full-blown tactics game that requires the placement of large parties. As I mentioned, every character has access to 3 classes. Classes can be changed before the character is placed, so you can choose the right class for the right situation. Every character starts off with 1 class, and more classes are unlocked as they level up. We wanted to take this approach so the player wouldn't be overwhelmed by too many options. Players can learn to master 1 class and its abilities in the early game before unlocking a 2nd and eventually 3rd in the end game. We want to make sure that the player is having a more in-depth experience in combat by the end of the game rather than repeating the same repetitive habits they learned early on. Okay, it feels like that was a lot of info, and I should be wrapping it up, but actually, I'm just getting started. The action hasn't even started yet. This is where things start to look familiar. Similar to turn-based RPGs that show the turn order, you'll always know in what order actions will resolve based on position. Remember, it goes from left to right. On your turn, you'll be able to pick from the usual options: a basic attack, a skill from a personal skill bank, one from a class skill bank, or use an item. Some attacks have longer ranges than others, some are area of effect. Generally, melee classes have shorter ranged attacks compared to magical classes. Most of the time, skills with more rigid range requirements are stronger, so that's something you'll need to plan for during positioning, as nothing can be moved in the action phase. If you want to let loose a large AoE attack, you might want to try to gather the enemies together during positioning. If you know the enemy has a big AoE attack, you might want to spread your party out. There's really a lot to think about concerning how the positioning phase flows into the action one. Other than that, it's a pretty typical combat system with the exception of the one last thing I'd like to talk about: the posture break system. FromSoft games like Sekiro and Elden Ring have really popularized the idea of a posture bar recently. I really like the flow it creates, moments of slow tension that culminate in a big climactic attack. JRPGs such as Final Fantasy XIII and Xenosaga Episode 3 have used posture gauges before. Both of those games require the party to fill a gauge on the enemy. Once full, the enemy enters a state where it can be damaged heavily. We put our own twist on the formula and required certain damage types to be dealt rather than to fill a gauge. Above certain enemies' heads, there will be a sequence of damage types. Dealing that damage type in that order will place the enemy into a broken state in which they will take a lot more damage for a certain amount of time. For example, if the sequence shows slashing and then fire, then it must be done in that order. Causing fire damage before slashing won't accrue any special benefit. Now, more excitingly, upon breaking an enemy, the character who dealt the final damage type in the sequence will be able to perform a combo attack. When this state is entered, you'll be able to spam the attack button and attack quickly for a limited time. As your party levels up, you'll be able to spend SP to call in your other party members and extend the time. The way we think, if you're able to posture break an enemy during a random battle, it should be dead immediately. Congratulations! Bosses, on the other hand, should be able to survive 3 or 4 posture breaks before going down, or they might have longer sequences that are harder to fulfill. It then becomes a game of surviving long enough to finish your sequence. Keep in mind, not every character has access to every damage type, so if you want to posture break an enemy, you'll need to strategize about how you sequence your characters during the positioning phase. Really, as our flagship battle feature, everything loops back to the plans you make during the positioning round. Between turn order, environmental hazards, area of effect attacks, and the posture system, there really are a lot of ways to approach how you want to position your party. Okay, that's a lot. There are many other features that flow into the combat system, such as character progression, class progression, stats, and equipment, but I think this is more than enough to tell you how all of this works. We've poured a lot of work and thought into this combat system and how all of its features would connect with one another. I really believe that we're providing a unique take on a genre while maintaining its hallmarks. More importantly, I hope all of you think it looks fun and interesting too. If you want to hear more from us, you can stick around here on YouTube. We try to have small weekly uploads along with a larger monthly one. You can also check out our website at lostcontinentgames.com, or you can follow us on social media on X at lostcontinentgm or Instagram at lost.continentgames. See you next time!